This is a special research institute where every single child held inside possesses supernatural abilities that make them completely different from ordinary people, and yet, despite the obvious mystery surrounding such a place, no one could have anticipated that the facility was hiding disturbing and dangerous secrets beneath its controlled exterior. This is the science fiction drama adapted from Stephen King's novel The Institute. Inside a school gym, high school students sit in rows taking an exam under the watchful eyes of proctors, and among them is 14-year-old Luke Ellis, a boy with extraordinary intelligence well beyond his years. When Luke finishes the exam far earlier than everyone else, he raises his hand, but the examiner assumes he just needs a bathroom break and gestures in that direction, even though Luke is actually done. Outside the gym, a small group of older students approaches him, curious about why someone so young is even there. One of them asks him about the answer to a math question she struggled with, only to find out Luke got a different result. He quickly does the calculation again in front of her, solving it effortlessly and proving she was the one who was wrong. She leaves looking embarrassed, and the scene shifts elsewhere, where a man named Tim Jamieson is preparing for a trip to New York City. Upon arriving at the airport, he learns his flight is overbooked, and because he isn't particularly eager about the trip to begin with, he volunteers to give up his seat. Instead of booking another flight, Tim decides to travel by road, and after hitchhiking for some time, a woman offers him a ride, telling him to throw his things in the back. That same evening, Luke is at a pizza restaurant with his parents, discussing his academic future. His principal has already been in touch with universities like MIT, and his parents worry about what such an accelerated path could mean for their son's childhood. During the conversation, the metal pizza pan on the table suddenly shifts and crashes to the floor without anyone touching it. Luke is confused, and nearby, a woman watches him intently without speaking. Later that night, Luke browses on his laptop before going to bed, the house quiet as his family sleeps. But the same woman from the restaurant returns, now dressed in black and accompanied by a team. They slip into the house with practiced silence while some keep watch outside. She enters Luke's room, and as he stirs awake, she sprays something in his face that knocks him unconscious. Meanwhile, Tim arrives in the quiet town of Denison, Maine, and spots an ad for a night knocker, an unofficial night patrolman who checks doors and keeps the town safe after dark. He applies for the job, and the local deputy seems surprised at his interest. Tim keeps his past vague, mentioning time in the military and on the police force, though he carries the heavy memory of accidentally killing a teenager suspected of planning a mass shooting. The deputy warns him he's overqualified, but offers him the position anyway. Luke wakes the next morning in a room that appears identical to his own, but when he looks outside, he realizes he's somewhere else entirely. Stepping out, he meets a teenage girl named Kisha who explains they're in a secret facility called the Institute. She asks if he's a TP, telepath, or a TK, telekinetic. Luke admits to mild telekinetic powers, while Kisha says she's a telepath. She explains the rules: no outside contact, no way to reach family, and absolute obedience to Miss Sigsby, who runs the place, and Dr. Hendricks, who handles medical matters. Staff watch him closely, noting his composure. After telling him everything she knows, Kisha unexpectedly kisses him, and before Luke can react, Stackhouse, the head of security, orders him to get dressed to meet Miss Sigsby. Tim officially starts his new role, guided by Officer Wendy Gullickson, who's territorial and skeptical of outsiders mocking local traditions, including the older night knocker post, though Tim notes his grandfather once did the job. While walking through the institute, Luke spots the woman who abducted him, Michelle, and tries to approach her, but guards stop him. Miss Sigsby tells Luke that the work at the institute is vital and will save countless lives, but rules must be followed without resistance. Injections and tests are mandatory, and after their time at the institute, all children's memories will be erased before they are returned home. On his first patrol, Tim encounters an older woman who strangely seems to know personal details about him and warns him about someone named George Arman, hinting at strange events in the world. In an elevator, Stackhouse and Michelle discuss her hurried abduction of Luke due to the MIT offer, which disrupted their usual process. Driving away later, Michelle sees a man asking about the institute, which operates under the cover of a microbiology lab. Luke is then escorted by Moran, a staff member, who tells him obedient children earn tokens redeemable at vending machines. He's taken to have a chip implanted in his ear, and when he hesitates, the staff member strikes him. Tim stays at the Stanton Hotel, run by Hollister, and meets a woman named Annie, who blames Hollister for interfering with her radio signals. At a bar, Michelle meets her girlfriend Kate, but when they leave, they pass Tim without interaction. Kisha later brings Luke to dinner, now also wearing the ear device. She kisses him again, explaining she once caught an illness that delayed her transfer to the back half and hopes he catches it to stay safer longer. In the cafeteria, Luke meets other children like George and Iris, both telekinetic, and learns the POS-NEG system, those who can control their powers and those who cannot. George demonstrates his ability, and they meet Nikki, older and bitter about being there. Ages in the institute range from 10 to 19. Meanwhile, Michelle confesses doubts to Kate, but Kate kills her on Stackhouse's orders. Outside, Luke plays chess with Nikki, who talks about escaping. That night, Miss Sigsbee burns her leg with a hot metal rod, adding to old scars. Luke wins at chess, and Nikki asks if he believes the Institute's promises, suggesting they work together to escape. The next morning, it's Iris's graduation to the back half, which terrifies her because no one returns. Luke is preparing for his first test, and Kisha advises Kate to ease the nausea from injections. Luke tells her about the escape plan, saying he wants to help everyone. They say goodbye to Iris before she's taken away. In town, Tim helps Hollister with his pet before Wendy warns him about 2 armed criminals possibly coming to town. She offers him a gun, but he declines. Miss Sigsbee and Stackhouse report Michelle's death to a superior, suggesting Kate as her replacement. Luke is strapped into a chair for testing, telling Dr. Hendricks he can't control his power, but they inject him anyway, causing dizziness. In town, Annie confronts Mrs. Sloan about a girl's suspicious death, but Tim calms her down. After a second injection, Luke briefly lifts an object with his mind before vomiting. Moran checks on him afterward. Later in the cafeteria, George returns from the dream box shaken, a device forcing children to relive painful memories while solving a light pattern. Luke and Nikki discuss escape again, knowing the cameras are a major obstacle, and Luke suggests they might need a strong telepath to help. He also notices a nearby factory spewing smoke weekly. Tim and Wendy discuss Zoe's death and the dangerous red steps in the river, but Wendy dismisses Annie's suspicions. George uses his powers to steal a coin, and Luke and Kisha think Moran could be trusted, though Nikki disagrees. Luke learns a new boy, Avery Dixon, is arriving soon. Before his shift, Tim chats with local gas station owner Dira, who shares his past of fleeing Somalia before settling in Maine. That night, Tim visits Annie, but their conversation is interrupted by gunfire. He rushes to the gas station to find it being robbed, exchanges fire, and saves the wounded Dira. At the Institute, Dr. Hendricks tells Stackhouse that George is nearly ready for the back half, while Luke's abilities aren't fully developed but could be important. Hendricks refuses to break rules to search for PC potential, but Stackhouse presses him, insisting Luke is the one. Chief Ashworth arrives at the robbery scene, praising Tim's quick action. That night, Luke hears crying in the hall and finds the new arrival, Avery, curled on the floor. Kisha comforts him, using her telepathy to sense his incredible power. She tells Luke and Nikki that Avery's strength is unlike anything she's felt, and the two exchange a look, realizing they may have found the missing piece to their escape plan. So, if you find this type of content worth your while, feel free to like this video and hit the subscribe button for future uploads. See you in the next one.